This is the all-new Palmetto State Armory Sabre Dagger. We're going to determine whether this pistol is nothing but a hype train or if it's a legit pistol that shakes up the market, provides you premium features without the premium price tag. There is a lot of stuff going on with this pistol. We're going to cover every single ounce of that. And on top of all of that stuff, we're going to give you a few different thought points that you can think about when you're trying to determine what pistol is right for the money. This pistol, as it sits here, we bought this from PSA right on the day that they dropped, got online like everybody else, bought it, came in about $690 shipped to the FFL, and also had FFL fees. So we'll call it $700 with the fees and shipping and everything. This is the M81 Woodland model. So I'm going to cover all the features on it real quick. You have a laser stippled grip on here that is Cerakoted with M81, a metal magwell here on the bottom, lightning cuts on the slide, the saber markings here on the left side of the pistol, saber marking on the top. This one here is our mark cut, which is something important we'll talk about with that real quick. When we got this pistol, I had every intention to put a red dot on this. Generally speaking, I will not shoot pistols without a red dot at this point in the game, just because everything I shoot has a red dot on it. This not being able to mount a red dot was aggravating. The pistol came with two screws that did not and do not fit the screw holes here on the optic mount itself. On top of that, the screws that came with it didn't come with the proper size wrench, and actually came with a Torx bit that doesn't fit anything on this gun whatsoever. The screws took an Allen key and they didn't fit. So as this came out of the box, the holosun screws that come with that optic don't fit. Trijicon screws don't fit. The screws that came with it don't fit. So this gun out of the box at $700, we were unable to mount a red dot on it. And then we'll get into the iron sights. The iron sights on here are actually going to be blacked out iron sights. Suppressor height, good overall choice on the height of the sights for this pistol. But the problem we have with that is that they're blacked out. So now I have no red dot. I can't mount a red dot on this thing as it sits. I have nothing to mount a red dot with, and I have completely blacked out iron sights. I wish that the front sight itself was some form of, like, say, tritium lamp or white dot on the front. The blacked out rear is completely fine, but the fact that this is like that is kind of an issue when you're looking at it in the grand scheme of things. Shooting today in a bright sunlight day, you'll be fine. Shooting in a dark environment, you know, let's say I have this weapon light on here, that's going to be an issue. You're not going to be able to get a good sight picture and ultimately provide target focus and super transposing that front sight on your target. Up here you do have a threaded barrel. It's good. The fit and finish of that stuff looks good. Your slide serrations on here, they're a little bit on the weak side. You know, granted, they are, you know, let's say somewhat deep, but Andrew, the cameraman, he actually mentioned to me when we picked this thing up that one of the bigger issues you have is the fact that they knurled it. Okay, well, they knurled it, but after they knurled it, you can see it was clearly, let's say, Cerakoted after that. So if you knurl it and then you Cerakote it after that, and Cerakote itself starts to fill up some of those gaps, and then all of a sudden that Cerakote or that knurling job you have on the slide is no longer as aggressive as you may have liked it to be. I think it's sufficient. I think it's usable. However, you're going to have a little bit of an issue if you have wet, slippy, you know, bloody hands, muddy, whatever they might be. It's not going to be perfect. They are sufficient. I'm just thinking with this pistol, for what the Sabre Dagger is supposed to be, I feel like they could have went on a more aggressive route. The lightning cuts are cool. The grips textures here, these are better than what you're going to find on the standard dagger models from PSA. I think they're good. I think they're going to be sufficient. There is a finger groove in there. For the finger groove with me, it's an issue because my, let's say, middle finger actually goes onto that. When Andrew holds the pistol, he doesn't have that issue. I do. So for me, I don't like it. But then one of the best parts about this pistol, what I'll say, is I happen to actually really like the trigger shoe. The trigger shoe on this pistol is flat-faced. It's pretty standard Glock-esque. Nothing special. It's not going to be like a Timney Alpha trigger or anything like that. So you come back, you get some mush, you know, a little bit more mush, which is standard for a Glock because it's going across that striker. Or at the edge of the striker, a little bit more creep, and then it breaks. I'd say the break itself is probably close to 5.5 to 6 pounds, so it's on the heavier side. I can't say it's any lighter than the standard dagger models, and this pistol as it sits is about twice as much as a standard dagger model. And so we're going to determine this review today through shooting it and seeing how it functions and everything like that. If this pistol itself, provided as it sits, is worth twice as much as you would normally spend on a PSA product. We're fans of PSA products, but can we sit here and tell you right now that this thing is worth more than that thing, or it should be worth more? That's going to be up to the individual. Does it have features that you would put on a standard dagger? Does this have features that are so much better than what's on a standard dagger? We'll determine all of that stuff today. So let's get into shooting this thing. We'll load it up. You do get P-mags. They are Magpul 17 rounders, and then there is an extension base plate on here. You get 2 of them, and then a nice Savior case, which is one of the easily the nicest pistol cases I've seen on the market for pistols, especially in this price range, let alone that case that comes with it is identical to what I actually got with the OA Defense 2311. So good stuff there. If you guys have any questions about the gear that I'm wearing today, let's say maybe it's a shirt, maybe it's my shot timer, holster, duty belt here, you know, anything like that, the pants, that stuff is all going to be found in a link in the description, which takes you directly to our website. There are some affiliate links in there. However, the majority of them, what I'll tell you guys is that with those links, they are not. They're just simply links to help you guys find what you're looking for because of the number of comments that we generally get in the comment section. So let's get into shooting this pistol. First shots out of the PSA Sabre Dagger. We'll start this off with a bill drill. It's 5. So first shot out of the gate, gave myself slide bites, that's fun. Oh, that's interesting. Stand by. So I had slide lock back with a magazine that's still got 3 rounds in it. Let's see here. So it's possible, it's entirely possible that I rode my thumb up and hit that. You know, this thing, revolutionary, now it shoots like a Glock. You know, if I'm being completely honest, how it shoots like a Glock. You're gonna ask me, you know, right now, what would you think after 17 rounds? Well, I don't know, it's too early. I mean, this is a pistol that's a competitor to, you know, arguably one of the most proven duty pistols to ever be made. It's still used today, and it really hasn't changed in like 40 years. So we'll continue to shoot this thing. You know, the grip textures, those feel good. That nub is definitely rubbing me on that middle finger, and I don't like that. But however, the pistol itself seems like it shoots pretty good. Please excuse me. See, I keep getting slide bite with this thing, which if you guys are familiar with the channel, you know that I shoot a lot of Shadow Systems pistols on this channel. I do not get slide bite with those whatsoever. And in fact, those grips themselves, because of the beaver tail that you get on the Shadow System stuff, I actually get a higher grip with those, but that beaver tail then protects my hand. This one here, when I get my thumb up there, that thumb knuckle is actually getting hit by the slide and giving me a slight slide bite. So a failure to extract, you can see, you come in here and look at it. So smash primer, you can see the extractor, it's not looking good. Didn't yank out that shell casing. So you can kind of see that hopefully. And you can see where it actually ripped off the brass and didn't pull that out. So there's another malfunction, same thing. So these ones like this. So same thing. For the record, these are Glock 19X mags that I'm using right now. I'll have to check to ensure that it's not just like the magazines for this pistol. However, I would think that these would work fine. However, you know, I've used them in other daggers without an issue. Same thing though, a failure to extract. So I can't say that that's a magazine related issue when you get a failure to extract, because I can see that the extractor claw has clearly grabbed the rim of the case and pulled on it and failed to ultimately pull that case out. So, and you guys are seeing I'm dropping a magazine like that. That type of malfunction, what that causes is actually quote unquote so severe that the easiest and quickest way to clear that malfunction, if you have additional magazines, is to push that button, rip the slide, you basically rack it a bunch of times, it's gonna drop, you clear it out and then reload the pistol. So same thing. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure I'm just going to load up the P-mags that come with it and ensure it's not just a magazine related issue. However, like I said, the fact that it's failing to extract, and you can see it's clearly grabbing that case rim or not grabbing the case rim and yanking it out, that would generally speaking be an extractor issue. So I'll try the different mags. I have a bunch more P-mags because Shadow System ships for those, but you know, my experience with their products, in addition to that, you know, previous daggers that I've had or used, I've never had any issues with Glock magazines. We have P-mags loaded up now, no Glock mags, and I had some KCI USA mags that we've had around for a while. They work okay, generally speaking, but we have a little bit of everything now that we're going to use, and we'll try out with the Sabre Dagger. Let's see how this thing functions now. This is 147 grain Federal American Eagle ammunition through here. For us, generally speaking, we'll pick up stuff that we find the cheapest, find the best deal. We have some 147s, 124, and in general, we're gonna also shoot some Fort Scott Tumble Upon Impact 115 grain today as well. So let's shoot some more. What I've noticed is that the ejections themselves are erratic. They are not like a sewing machine where they're just running out in the same direction every time. In fact, that first shot out of the gun actually came out of the gun and hit back on the top of it. I do want to ask, for anybody, let's say at PSA, if you watch this, why does this pistol, if you're somebody, you know, that's not going to run red dot, why does it have completely blacked out sights? I knocked you for having 3-dot whites. I would rather have 3-dot whites than no dots whatsoever. But this thing, without that, it doesn't give me something, let's say, to transpose on the target. It makes it way harder and way, let's say, harder to remain target focused. I have to really focus on the sights more than what I'm doing normally with other pistols, and especially a red dot. What I've noticed with the iron sights themselves is they actually tend to shoot on the low side, which is kind of standard for suppressor height sights. So it's not really a big deal. It's just something to take note of when you're shooting this pistol. They shoot, if I'm holding, let's say on the target itself, there is like a 5-6 inch oval on there. If I hold at the top of the oval at the top of the front sight post, generally speaking, it's hitting the lower 1/3 of that oval. The mag well in this pistol feels really good. The magazines themselves feel good going in there, especially for the Sabre magazines. They're nice like that. No issues so far with malfunctions using the P-mags, which is a good sign. Those are the supplied magazines. So I can't knock a pistol if the issues are just magazine related. However, like I said, the extraction problems, you know, and it could even have somewhat of a break-in period as it gets through some new Cerakote and things like that on the pistol. Glock mag again. Before I continue with this, you know, I generally speaking wouldn't really knock these sights if I could mount the brand new red dot that I have to go on this pistol. But because PSA didn't supply what was necessary to mount a red dot on a pistol that's cut for a red dot, It's incredibly aggravating at that very basic, you know, standpoint. On top of the fact, now I got to use the iron sights on here because I don't have a dot, and the iron sights for this are just not ideal. You know, think of it, blacked out iron sights with a red dot or a backup option. Worst case scenario, your dot goes down, you got to use your sights. In this case, I have to use the sights the whole time. So it's just not ideal. You know, it's not an excuse for some of the shooting per se, but what I'll say is it makes it incredibly difficult when you're used to, let's say, blacked out irons on the rear and a green dot front like I had on my 320. It just makes it a little bit more difficult. You know, overall, the pistol, how it feels is good in your hand. It's a full-size, you know, grip pistol on here. That feels good. And it appears, too, that some of those malfunctions we had out of the gate with it have cleared up. You know, we're at probably 115 rounds through the pistol, and it seems to be good. The grip textures on here, I think they're sufficient and they're adequate. I, generally speaking, prefer more of like a sandpaper grip. But this right here, these are good and they feel good. And I really like the magwell that's on this pistol. So one thing I'll show you here is on the magazine release button itself. It's actually a little bit on the small side. You know, it's not really texture or anything like that. It's a small button. In order to drop a magazine, I really got to get my thumb in there and actively like depress it like at a sharp angle back inward, versus your standard Glock releases like you have on a Shadow Systems or your Gen 5s or 4s. They're not like that. Of course, this is a Gen 3 clone, so you don't have that and it has to kind of be this way. So my recommendation is, if you can with this pistol, you're possibly going to want to, you know, get a magazine release that's more beneficial to reloads. If you're not doing a lot of reloads, you're never going to notice it. This is a KCI magazine. I want to walk you guys through the trigger pull now under live fire. How triggers perform or how they function while you're shooting can feel very differently than what they do inside a studio on a trigger pull gauge, and it really is a good overall way to find out how that pistol functions with that trigger. So we'll go into that. All right. All right. So, you lined up? Yep. All right. So the trigger itself will come down on that shoe. Here's your take up. Good bit of take up. Mushy wall. I'd assume we're somewhat at the rear most portion of the wall. So it should break here. A little bit more creep. And it broke. That reset. Audible. Fairly short, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Any creep there with that reset if we ride it? Yeah, there's some creep right there. And then the wall breaks. So, well, unfortunately we had a failure to extract. That's what the KCI magazine, like I said, these magazines from KCI with the Glock pattern ones, generally speaking, they're not the greatest. So if I get malfunctions with them, with any pistol I'm using, I don't count it against the pistol. I had mentioned about the magazines hanging up in the magwell. This is a Magpul P mag. If you watch when I insert it, the magazine goes in, and you can see it's like not in all the way, it's actually hitting that Cerakote, but then on top of that, before it's actually inserted, it's actually going to impact the magwell on the bottom of the magazine. So like that one there, that's a full mag, and actually the mag release is sticking, but it's a full magazine that will not drop free. With a Sabre Dagger magazine, so this is the factory supplied one, you can see they've actually made it so on the rear end it doesn't protrude, and it does not hit quite as much as it normally would. So all the way in, you'll see it hit. It's actually just barely starting to impact that magwell, and it snaps into place. So it's not nearly as severe, and it doesn't do what the standard Magpul one does. The Glock 19X mags I have, that's exactly what they do. A little bit of torsion or misalignment could be causing mag-related issues. Got a few more mags now to shoot through the Sabre Dagger, and then we'll close it out and I'll give you guys some final thoughts as well as some interesting takeaways from today's filming session. We have just finished shooting the Sabre Dagger for the review of this pistol. My final thoughts? It's a little bit on the touch pricey side for what you're getting. I only say that because right out of the gate from shooting today and the number of rounds I have through this, which is a couple of, let's say close to 300 now, I've shot the PDP Pro Series, I've shot the Foundation Series XR920, and then I've also shot the Springfield Echelon. Those three pistols are roughly the same price as this. If you could find a deal on that PDP Pro, it's gonna be about the same price. Those three pistols all come in at the same price point as this, and they do things better than this pistol does. That's not to say that this isn't an incremental improvement upon the standard PSA Dagger. It definitely is, and this is one cool looking pistol. It's one of the coolest looking pistols that we own, yet it doesn't come with a price tag that matches some of those high-end pistols. So you do get good grip serrations here, grip textures. The slide serrations themselves are mediocre at best. However, they are functional, they're usable. I just wish that they were a little bit more aggressive. The lightning cuts are there. The barrel itself is nice. It looks like it's well done and well finished. The finish itself looks good. The Cerakote, overall, I'd probably get it an 8 out of 10 on there. It's not really the cleanest Cerakote job I've seen. In addition to that, I noticed some issues when doing reloads with getting the magazines to drop free, that they were actually kind of hanging up inside that mag well, because if you feel it in there, it's almost like a chalky feeling from that Cerakote. However, I'll say is that the mag well on this pistol is phenomenal. I think it's really good. The trigger itself is good. It has a good, let's say, overall break in it. However, it's about 5.5 to 6 pounds of this pistol is what we found. So it's a touch on the heavy side. I was able to mount a TLR1 on there. It has blacked out sights on here completely with no, let's say, fiber optic front or nothing like that. I wish in the future that this thing could have that. Luckily, it being a Glock design, it's easy to replace that sight if you want to. The biggest gripe I have is that we bought this pistol and we were unable to mount a red dot on it because of a QC issue, which unfortunately, when you talk to people, if they have any qualms against PSA, it's usually related to QC. And unfortunately, we've experienced that with this pistol that we bought like everybody else had to with this. And we can't mount a red dot on here because we don't have the screws to do it. The screws for an R bar don't even fit in here at all. And that's the one supplied by them. And on top of that, the wrench that they give you to input the supplied screws is actually the improper wrench. It's not even the right size. So that part right there is probably the biggest gripe I have on this pistol. On top of the fact, we paid almost $700 for this pistol, and I'd say if I was to give you a realistic estimate of how much this thing should cost, $500 and not one dime more than that. At the end of the day though, it's not a bad pistol. It shoots well. I don't have any gripes about that. It performs like you would expect ultimately a Glock. When I ran Glock magazines through it, we had issues. If I ran nothing but P mags, no issues whatsoever. So it's possible it's a magazine related issue. However, a number of those were simple failure to extracts. Outside of that stuff, guys, if you want to see comparison review between this and let's say a Shadow Systems XR920 Foundation Series, let us know. If you want to see it compared to something else like a PDP Pro or maybe even the Echelon, we'll knock that stuff out, but you guys show us interest and we'll show you some love with a future video. But until next time, like, comment, and subscribe.